Hi, I'm Corey. Did you know the Bourbon Reforms weren't all about uplifting the prohibition on rum in New Spain during the 18th century? They were actually the Spanish crown's attempt to increase profit flow from the New World by making political, administrative, military, and economic changes. The Bourbon Reforms were implemented during the late 1700s, and their effects could be felt throughout the 1800s. The name comes from the ruling family of the time, the Bourbon dynasty. The main goal was to separate state and the church, with the country giving absolute loyalty to the monarch. Causes and intents. The Enlightenment period left the world looking for explanations to everything outside of the church. Father Friho, a respected clergyman, was able to question some ideas without creating controversy. He opened the door of science to many religious minds. This gave the Spanish monarchy the opportunity to swoop in and declare their authority. Illegal trading in the New World was escaping taxes, which meant money lost for the monarch. There was also some unverifiable accounting overseas and the burden of the debt from losing the 7 Years' War, which caused Spain to seek other means of increasing their income stream from the New World. The first thing the king did was order José del Galvez, pictured on this stamp, to inspect New Spain. After his visits, the 3 visitas, he recommended many changes to take place to achieve their goal of increasing their power and loyalty to the crown. These changes secured the ruler's authority. They were known as the Bourbon Reforms. Political reforms. The main goal of the reforms were to create an authoritarian presence in New Spain. The crown did not want anyone to question their decisions, laws, or policies. They drew a bold black line between government and church. The church's views did not always align with the monarch's. So instead of trying to persuade, influence, or buy off priests and religious leaders, the crown decided to take a new route. Just eliminate the problem. They discredited the church, broke all ties, and therefore lowered their power and seriously limited their influence. The crown even went as far as to expel Jesuits from all of New Spain. The Jesuits had too much influence in education and was impeding on the crown's power. Here you could see a picture of the infamous school of mining established by the Jesuits. It's still well known today. Administrative reforms. Before the Bourbon Reforms, New Spain's tax boundaries and responsibilities of nobles was very disorganized and undefined. Civilians were often paying double taxes to multiple nobles. The Bourbon Reforms successfully established boundaries, procedures, and offices for administrative purposes in New Spain. The crown ordered viceroys, a ruler exercising authority in a colony on behalf of the sovereign, to set up intendancies. These viceroys were Spanish-born, not from the New World. These intendancies were boundaries for administrative and tax purposes. This did supply some organization and structure throughout the country. The newly organized administration assisted in managing the cities and contributed to the increased profits of the monarch. Military reforms. Before the reforms, New Spain's military was in chaos. Mismanaged funds, underpaid soldiers, and unclear alliances. With the reforms came direct taxes for the military. As the Army and Navy were created with clear responsibilities, organization was improving. A united, well-established military was created. One of the greatest achievements of the military reforms was the settling of California. Economic reforms. The economic reforms taking place were perhaps the most beneficial. As organization improved and jurisdiction was defined, the economy as a whole greatly benefited. Funds were distributed to the military, intendentes were collecting taxes without double dipping or aggravating the civilians, and trade routes were open. The additional trade routes gave vast opportunity to imports, but more beneficial were the exports. Imagine the world today without the flavors, colors, and ideas of the New World being freely available for purchase. Personal household income increased, as well as the royal accounts back in Spain. These all allowed the economy within both worlds to flourish, or in some way catch up with the rest of the world. The vast income increase was only temporary, as the catch point eventually leveled out. Impact on New Spain. Although the Bourbon Reforms were semi-successful in stimulating the income flow from New Spain to the homeland across the ocean, the increased income flow was temporary and failed in creating nationwide loyalty to the crown, which was the main goal of the reforms. The organization and structure provided by the form of the Intendentes created a short-term sense of peace and stability throughout the country. Although New Spain caught up and entered the world market, the people were still unhappy and mistreated. Impact on Creoles. The Bourbon Reform had a great impact on the Creoles. The military created opportunity for the Creole to hold office rank within their own section. This gave them an opportunity to participate in the caste social class system of the time. Creole were given many important roles overseeing cities, mines, and people. They had experience and some power. The business peoples and the owners benefited from open trade. The Creoles did feel oppressed and untied to the old world. They often led revolts and worked with their native neighbors, and they expressed their discontent in other ways. Summary. The reforms were not successful in achieving overall loyalty from the civilians in New Spain. Positions of authority were still only available to the upper class. Forced labor for public works projects were acceptable in society again. Indians, Creoles, and other civilians were not able to move up in social class. New Spain's economical, agricultural, transportation, and other issues were ignored by the royals, leaving the country with civil unrest. And as we know, when the people are unhappy, they will be heard.